Remember when it was cool and funny to say D's and then somebody would respond and then you would say like D's nuts or something like that? No, neither do I. I don't ever remember that being cool or really that funny. Like, I think it was funny one time in high school and that was it. Like, everybody moved on to other things. I literally just heard a middle-aged dude say it the other day and it felt weird. It just didn't sound right. These people need to be stopped, okay? They need to be arrested immediately. But seriously, just allow the joke to die, okay? But enough of that nonsense. Let's get straight into today's video. And I'm not going to make this too extensive. I'm not going to get too deep into it. It's a pretty basic announcement. So it is official now. Hasbro will continue making collectibles, not only for the Star Wars universe, including Black Series, you know, vintage, retro, so on and so forth, but also the Marvel franchise, meaning, you know, Marvel Legends and any of the smaller little kid-friendly collectibles. Those are going to continue as well. And honestly, guys, I think this is pretty good news. Honestly, I know some people were ready for the line to move on to a different manufacturer, and maybe it would make sense. I know a lot of people have always floated around the idea of Jada Toys taking over certain franchises. And by the way, this kind of shuts down the rumor mill because it feels like every other month there was somebody making a video about like how the Marvel Legends line was going to be lost by Hasbro, and I'll include myself in that because I did hear some rumblings here and there, but I think we can move on past that. I felt, you know, even as I was making those videos, like there wasn't enough foundation. I mean, there really wasn't anything in the air. It was just kind of like pure speculation, and at the end of the day, it was, I guess, just for the sake of making content. But in reality, I don't think Hasbro was really ever in danger of losing these licenses. They're probably paying a very hefty fee up front to be able to manufacture these figures. Not to mention they probably have to pay some sort of royalty fee on top of that for each individual figure that they sell. And just to reiterate, I don't think anybody was an insider on this particular news breaking. There were a lot of people out there that were pretending like they were insiders or they knew stuff about, you know, Hasbro potentially losing the license. But like I said, I don't think that it was ever in doubt. I think once they sat down, they worked out the numbers, they realized that nobody was going to come close to Hasbro, and the deal got done. You know, like I said, there were a few content creators out there. There were some people that I've heard had some, you know, grudges against Hasbro for some unforeseen reason. And I feel like at the end of the day, there are a lot of content creators, and I tend to fall into that pit hole myself, but sometimes there are a ton of content creators that are nothing but headline grabbers. They're just going to create the most outrageous title, the most outrageous speculation just for the sake of getting views, just for the sake of causing a little bit of a stir, causing some commotion, because that's really what gets you eyeballs. And as I said, I think every single content creator on the platform, be it as small as I am or as big as they are, they definitely fall into this trend. I admit to it. There have been a couple of videos here and there where I hear something, I hear a little bit of a rumble, I see a post on Facebook or something like that, and then I make an entire video on it. And I think we should kind of pump the brakes from time to time. I'm not saying that all our videos or all our content should be 100% confirmed. There are going to be some videos where we just speculate and talk out of our ass, but there are channels out there that are literally all about just nonsense drama and just building up some drama and quite a bit of tension. So look, that aside, Hasbro keeping both of these licenses, I don't know, it's kind of interesting. I'll say, like, my immediate reaction, I'm kind of torn between saying that I'm a little bit frustrated with Hasbro, but then at the same time, I always think back to when another manufacturer picks up a particular line and then they have to go through like the trials and tribulations of making really good collectibles for those characters. And I feel like Hasbro's already gone through that. They've gone through the pains and the aches of making, you know, like a Spider-Man action figure, Captain America. I feel like if anybody else picked up the Marvel and Star Wars universe in action figure form, I think they would run into some of those potholes and some of those brick walls that you just have to run into when you pick up a new line. And so on that side of things, I like it because it's Hasbro. They're going to continue to build on what they already have. Yes, we are frustrated with some of the price points, Maximum Spider-Man, Maximum Hulk. We have seen, you know, a few figures here and there pop up for astronomically high prices. We just got the black suited or the Venomized Tobey Maguire action figure that was going for quite a bit of money. But at least bare minimum, you know that they're going to continue to build on what they already have. Like, I actually, most of the Marvel Legends, or I should say a good percentage of them that are supposed to be really well articulated, they are really well articulated. Like the Spider-Man Marvel Legends, we just got that comic book accurate Daredevil that is absolutely brilliant, and the list goes on and on. Like, they're actually doing a very good job. I've heard the new Punisher is a great figure, the new Iron Fist. Like, those are figures that, you know, I don't think if any other manufacturer picked them up and started making those particular characters, they would be able to match, you know, Hasbro in that regard. Now, the Black Series line, I've said it before, it's kind of, at least in my personal opinion, it's kind of a hit or miss. It just depends on what you want from the Black Series line. I wish it was as articulated as the Marvel Legends line. Some of these figures don't have butterfly joints. They have single jointed elbows, single jointed knees. They prioritize the sculpt work, you know, in most cases, and I think that's kind of frustrating. I want some more consistency, right? Like, sometimes you look at a Black Series action figure and then a Marvel Legends action figure, and let's say you didn't know that they were manufactured by Hasbro. Honestly, you wouldn't even be able to tell that they're the same OM. Like, sometimes they look somewhat similar, but for the most part, they're just completely different action figure lines, and I don't like that. I don't understand why it is that they do it. I would love to see like a really articulated Luke Skywalker, get him into some really crazy dynamic poses. Same thing with Ahsoka. I know they released the new Clone Wars Ahsoka. I saw some reviews on it, some images, and I was just completely disappointed. I think it still came with like really limited articulation. I don't understand why that's happening. The mid-torso articulation isn't great, so on and so forth. They're always going to prioritize the sculpt work and the likeness and things of that nature. So, as I said, it's kind of a hit or miss, but as I mentioned prior, they're going to continue to build, right? Could you imagine? And I know Jada Toys is kind of the standard for 1/12 collectibles right now. They've been making absolute bangers, but could you imagine Jada Toys picking up for example, the Black Series line and starting from scratch? There would be there would be quite a bit of a learning curve, and I'm not sure that we want to go through that, especially for seasoned collectors. Like, maybe new collectors would be okay with it, but people that have been collecting these lines for years and years, I don't know if you would want to jump into that. So as I said, I'm kind of torn. Like, I would love to see Jada Toys or one of these smaller companies pick up one of these licenses. I don't think it's ever going to happen. I can only imagine how much money Hasbro had to put forth to be able to keep these lines. I think the whole DC situation with McFarlane is a perfect example. Like, he could not outbid Mattel. That just tells me that there's so much money being thrown around to be able to have the rights to make collectibles. And I'm going to just assume that, you know, the DC line as a whole probably wasn't very profitable for McFarlane, and he was, you know, just looking to move off of that. I'm going to assume just because he was pouring in so much effort and so much time into the DC line, and he's so small that he couldn't really work on too many lines simultaneously. Whereas in like Mattel, Hasbro, you know, these are bigger companies and they have other stuff in the works. I mean, Hasbro has, you know, their game boards, they have other lines that belong to them, like G.I. Joe, Transformers, so on and so forth. So it just makes more sense for these lines to be able to afford, you know, picking up a Marvel Legends or a Star Wars or picking up DC, because as I said, they have other projects in the works. And even if some of these lines are not as profitable as they usually are, they're still making money, you know, elsewhere. So at the end of the day, I'm okay with Hasbro keeping the line. I'm just not as excited, you know. Like, I do feel like they're doing good things. They're pushing the line forward. We're getting, I mean, compare the Marvel Legends line even, you know, 6-7 years ago, before we got like the retro carded animated Spider-Man, which, you know, was like one of the greatest Spider-Man action figures, or one of the best action figures at that particular price point at that time. Like, think back before that, the line has come a long way. You know, the butterfly joints have gotten way better. We're getting a new neck joint. I'm hoping that maximum neck joint eventually reaches the regular Marvel Legends action figures or a regular Spider-Man, but you have the double ab articulation, toe articulation, pinless tech. Like, the line is moving in a very good direction. It's moving very slowly, but at least we're getting there. But at the same time, I'm a little bit sad because I do wish that one of these other lines, as I mentioned, Jada Toys might have picked it up and done something absolutely crazy. Just something that would have blown our minds. As I said, maybe they would have, you know, had some issues here and there, but sometimes you just need a reboot, right? It's not so much about like getting like quote unquote better product. It's just about getting something that refreshes the community, something that kind of cleanses your palate, that gets you ready for something new, something intriguing. And I felt like that's maybe the shakeup that both of these lines needed. But at the same time, they're so much better, right? Like, think about the new clone body mold that we're getting for the Black Series line. Think about some of the amazing head sculpts that we've gotten from the Black Series line. You know, they're moving in a good direction, and I think at least we can kind of take solace in that. As I said, I'm okay with this choice. I'm not, you know, super hyped or super excited because we just kind of go back to the norm, but at the same time, the line, you know, has been getting better as the years have gone by. But this is just my personal opinion, my personal take. Let me know your thoughts down below. Are you excited for Hasbro to continue making Black Series and Star Wars and, you know, just in general collectibles for Marvel and Star Wars? Or would you like to see another manufacturer pick it up? If so, which other manufacturer? Do you wish to see McFarlane make 7-inch, you know, Marvel action figures or Star Wars? I don't know if anybody does, but, you know, if you do, let me know down below in the comment section. As always, if you guys enjoy this type of rambling content, make sure to stay tuned. We are doing this pretty consistently. If I'm not mistaken, we're up to like, you know, at least one video on a daily basis, which is, I don't know, it's really difficult to do if you guys haven't tried it. You know, it's definitely very fatiguing, but as I've said before, I love doing it. I love talking about action figures, rambling on about them. And as always, if you guys enjoy it, make sure to stay tuned. We do it pretty consistently. Make sure to enjoy the hobby. At least now, it's not going to be like anything groundbreaking. We can just kind of go back to the way that things were to an extent. And, you know, it isn't earth-shattering. So maybe you can kind of take solace in that. You're not going to have to sell your, you know, Hasbro Marvel Legends or your Hasbro Black Series action figures or your Star Wars Vintage. You can continue collecting that. Anyways, stay safe out there. I'll see you guys in the next one. Thank you.